You chose this. You chose the quiet apartment, the solo evenings, the life where you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. And most of the time, that feels right. But then there are moments, usually at night, sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, when the silence stops feeling peaceful and starts feeling heavy. When you're sitting in a room you chose, in a life you built, and something in you still aches, and you don't know what to call it, because it doesn't make sense. You wanted this, so why does it feel like loneliness? That's not a personal failure. That's not you being ungrateful. That's a biological response. And once you understand the mechanism underneath it, it stops having power over you. That's what this video is about. Before we get into the science, I want to say something clearly. If you've ever sat in a quiet room and felt a heaviness you couldn't explain, you are not imagining it. If you've ever chosen to stay in rather than go out, and then felt oddly empty after, that is real. If you've ever looked around your apartment, thought, I have everything I need, and still felt something missing, you are not broken. This experience has a name. It has a mechanism, and it happens to almost every person who lives alone at some point. The problem isn't the silence. The problem is that your brain was never designed to experience silence the way you're experiencing it now, and nobody told you that. Until now. Here is what researchers believe is happening. Humans are deeply social creatures. For most of human history, we lived in constant low-level contact with other people, not always in conversation, often through background presence. Footsteps in another room, someone breathing nearby, the sound of another person simply existing. Many psychologists believe the brain uses these signals as part of how it assesses safety and stability. When those signals are present, the brain tends to settle. When they disappear completely, the brain notices. Not dramatically, but gradually. The absence itself becomes information. And that is where many solo living adults get confused. Because the feeling that follows is often interpreted as loneliness, not because your relationships are missing, not because your life is lacking, but because your brain may be responding to the absence of ambient human presence. Think about the difference between being alone in a cafe and being alone in your apartment. In both situations, you are by yourself, but one feels different. In the cafe, there is background life, voices, movement, the quiet presence of other people. Back in the apartment, those signals disappear. That difference is not emotional. It is environmental. And it points to something most people have never been told. There are two types of loneliness. The first is social loneliness, the absence of meaningful connection. The second is ambient loneliness, the absence of background human presence. You can have close friends, people who love you, a healthy social life, and still feel a quiet ache in an empty apartment. Because ambient loneliness is not about connection. It is about presence. The silence you chose is real. The life you built is real. But so is the response your brain generates when those ambient social signals disappear. That is not weakness. That is human. I want to be direct with you about something. The narrative around solo living often falls into one of two traps. The first trap is romanticization. Solo living as freedom, independence, self-sufficiency. All of that is true, but it skips over the harder moments. And when those moments arrive, people who've only heard the romantic version feel like something has gone wrong with them. The second trap is pathologization, treating every difficult feeling as evidence that living alone is unsustainable, unhealthy, or something to escape. That's not true either. The truth is more precise. Living alone is a legitimate way to build a life, and it comes with specific neurological experiences that other living arrangements don't produce in the same way. Understanding those experiences doesn't make you fragile. It makes you informed. When you know that the heaviness in the quiet is ambient loneliness, a biological signal, not an emotional verdict, it loses its grip. You stop asking, what is wrong with me? You start asking, what does my nervous system need right now? That is a completely different question, and it leads to completely different answers. Here is what happens once most people understand this. They try to eliminate the feeling completely. The moment the quiet starts feeling heavy, they reach for their phone. They put on a show. They fill every gap with noise. Not because they want connection, because they want relief. But there is a problem with that approach. Not every feeling of ambient loneliness means the same thing. Sometimes it is simply your brain noticing the absence of human presence. It passes on its own. Sometimes it is information, a signal that your social needs have not been met recently. Those are not the same experience. The first needs patience. The second needs action. Knowing the difference is the skill. So what do you actually do with this? Start with one distinction. There is a difference between solitude and deprivation. Solitude is chosen quiet. Deprivation is missing something you need. When the heaviness appears, ask, which one is this? If it is solitude, it will pass. If it is deprivation, it is information. That distinction changes everything. Environmental. When the feeling is deprivation, background human presence can help. A podcast, a documentary, a café ambient track. Not as a permanent solution, as an intentional environmental adjustment. Temporal. Ambient loneliness often appears during transition periods. Early evenings, Sunday afternoons. If you know your spike times, you can design around them. A walk, a call, a small plan. Not to avoid silence, to support yourself during the periods your brain finds hardest. Perceptual. When the feeling arrives, name it accurately. Not, I am lonely. Not, something is wrong with my life. Instead, my brain is noticing an absence of ambient social presence right now. Precision reduces suffering. Because once an experience is named accurately, it becomes easier to respond to wisely. You chose the quiet. That was not a mistake. That was not naivety. That was a decision made by someone who knows what they need. But choosing the quiet does not mean you are immune to what silence does to the brain. It means you need to understand it, so it doesn't catch you off guard. The heaviness is not a verdict on your life. It is a signal from a brain that is doing exactly what it was designed to do, looking for the presence of other humans. And when it doesn't find them, it tells you. Now you know what it's telling you. And now you can answer it. Not with panic, not with doubt, but with understanding. That is the difference between being managed by your experience and being informed by it. If this video named something you've been feeling but couldn't explain, share it with someone who might need to hear it too. And if you want more of the hidden science of living alone, subscribe, because this is only the beginning.